In the beginning, the world seemed pure, untouched, and perfect. The book of Genesis, to be exact in its 2nd and 3rd chapters, describes a paradise called the Garden of Eden, a lush sanctuary nourished by a river that split into 4 streams. In this paradise, the first humans, Adam and Eve, were created by God to live in harmony with nature. They were given dominion over all creatures and told they could eat from any tree, except one, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This single rule would shape the fate of humanity. When they disobeyed, everything changed. They gained knowledge, but at a cost. For most of us, this story isn't new, and for some, they have grown accustomed to the "we listen, we don't judge" culture, especially when it comes to sacred scriptures and ancient laws. But sometimes curiosity pushes us to question, is the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden a historical account or a carefully crafted myth? For centuries, this story has shaped our understanding of human origins, morality, and the consequences of disobedience. Yet scholars, theologians, and scientists alike have long debated whether it's meant to be taken literally. Is there any evidence to support the existence of Adam, Eve, or the garden itself? Or is this story purely symbolic, offering insights into human nature rather than historical events? So, in this investigation, we'll explore religious interpretations, examine the lack of historical and archaeological evidence, and consider how the story compares to other ancient creation myths. We'll also dive into the ongoing debate about Eden's possible location, and why even theologians like John Calvin struggled with its geographical description. Could this be a lost paradise or simply a powerful myth? Let's find it out. The question of whether Adam and Eve were real people or symbolic figures has divided religious communities for centuries. Some view the story as literal truth, while others interpret it as metaphorical. For many traditional believers, Adam and Eve were the first humans created by God in a perfect state. They lived in the Garden of Eden, a paradise from which they were expelled after disobeying God by eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This interpretation forms the foundation of the doctrine of original sin in Christianity, which teaches that all humanity inherited the guilt of Adam's transgression. In Islam, Adam and Eve's story emphasizes human fallibility and God's mercy, rather than the idea of inherited sin. On the other hand, many modern theologians and scholars interpret the narrative as an allegory. Instead of focusing on the story's literal details, they explore its deeper meaning. The forbidden fruit symbolizes the human desire for knowledge, and the expulsion from Eden reflects the consequences of human choices. Adam and Eve's disobedience can be seen as a metaphor for the universal struggle between temptation and obedience, innocence and experience. Even early theologians like St. Augustine emphasized the symbolic aspects of the story, suggesting it teaches about human nature rather than historical events. Similarly, John Calvin acknowledged that the story holds profound moral truths, even as he grappled with its literal inconsistencies. One of the strongest arguments for the fictional nature of Adam, Eve, and the Garden of Eden is the complete absence of historical or archaeological evidence. Modern science paints a very different picture of human origins. According to evolutionary biology, Homo sapiens evolved over hundreds of thousands of years from earlier hominins through the process of natural selection. Genetic studies have confirmed that the human population never descended from a single pair of individuals. Instead, humanity emerged from a diverse population that lived in Africa tens of thousands of years ago. Unlike other ancient cities and civilizations mentioned in the Bible, such as Babylon or Jericho, there is no archaeological evidence of the Garden of Eden. No artifacts, structures, or geographical features have been found that correspond to the description in Genesis. This absence of evidence has led most scholars to conclude that Eden is a mythological construct rather than a historical location. The book of Genesis offers a tantalizing clue about the location of Eden, describing a river that splits into 4, the Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, Hiddekel, and Euphrates. Most Bible commentaries place the garden somewhere in the Middle East near the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. However, the exact location remains a mystery. Theologians like John Calvin struggled with the geographical details of Eden. In his commentary on Genesis, Calvin acknowledged the difficulty of identifying the rivers mentioned. He noted that while the Tigris and Euphrates are well known, the identities of the Pishon and Gihon remain a mystery. Some early commentators speculated that these rivers could be the Nile or the Ganges, but Calvin dismissed these theories as implausible due to the vast distances involved. Calvin's main issue was the description in Genesis 2:10, which states that a single river flows out of Eden and divides into 4 headwaters. In reality, the Tigris and Euphrates do not share a common source, and no known river system matches the biblical description. Calvin admitted that attempts to pinpoint Eden's location were speculative at best, concluding that the names of the Pishon and Gihon may refer to rivers whose identities have been lost to history. Genesis describes Eden as a place where one river splits into 4, watering the garden before flowing into the world. However, no such river system exists in the Middle East today, and attempts to locate it have been unsuccessful. Some have suggested that the description might refer to a pre-flood world that no longer exists, but this remains purely speculative. Other scholars propose that the Garden of Eden was a symbolic location, never meant to be geographically pinpointed. Instead, it represents a paradise that exists beyond human reach, embodying the idea of a lost golden age. The story of Eden is not unique. Many cultures have myths about a primeval paradise, a golden age, or a fall from grace. These parallels suggest that the Genesis narrative belongs to a broader tradition of creation myths. In Mesopotamian mythology, the land of Dilmun is described as a paradise where death and disease do not exist. This mirrors the idyllic description of Eden in Genesis. Similarly, the Epic of Gilgamesh contains a story about a quest for eternal life that is thwarted by a serpent, an obvious parallel to the serpent in Eden who tempts Eve. In Greek mythology, the story of Pandora offers a similar motif. Pandora, the first woman, opens a jar, often mistranslated as a box, that releases all the evils of the world, leaving only hope inside. Like Eve, Pandora's act of disobedience brings suffering into the world, emphasizing themes of curiosity, temptation, and loss. Even if Eden is not a real place, its symbolism continues to resonate. Either you believe it or not. The garden represents an ideal world free from suffering and death, a utopia lost due to human choices. The idea of a lost paradise has inspired countless works of literature and art. John Milton's Paradise Lost explores the theological and philosophical implications of the fall, while modern retellings often focus on the human desire to return to a state of innocence. In contemporary culture, references to Eden often evoke nostalgia for a simpler, purer time or a yearning for redemption. The story continues to serve as a powerful metaphor for the human condition. The story of Adam, Eve, and the Garden of Eden is more than just a religious narrative. It's a myth that explores timeless questions about human nature, morality, and the search for meaning. While there is no historical or scientific evidence for its literal truth, its symbolic power endures. Whether viewed as allegory, theology, or cultural myth, it continues to captivate and inspire, offering profound insights into the human experience. What do you think? Is the story of Adam, Eve, and the Garden of Eden a literal account of human origins, or is it a powerful allegory about the choices we make in life? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below.